What do you think about the JPL thing?
I'm sorry, about the what?
Is the Montauk project with the chair and all that stuff, is that continued anywhere?
Well, at that time, in August 12th, 83, it ended, but it was revived in 1987.
Oh-ho.
The same group that was doing it earlier continued it, and that, of course, was the German scientists were brought over under Operation Paperclip. First, they were at the great laboratory on Long Island, and then they were moved out up to Montauk in 1968 approximately. The project crashed, was revived, and then in 1991, the project was taken over by the Navy for a project called Operation Sky Pebbles. They abandoned it in 1998, and then the Air Force was out and the Navy took it over. It is still going on underground, but for totally different than the original project. Many of the other aspects of the original project have been carried on elsewhere since, particularly the Montauk Boys program. That's now all over the U.S. and elsewhere. But many projects continued. Some of them were connected with JPL. JPL had their, shall we say, 2 cents worth in on it. And many of these secret projects continue elsewhere, and we don't really know, unless you're in on them, or find somebody that will talk out of turn, you don't really know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to track them all down. There's too many.
Wow. And on August 12th, will we see any fantastic things happening this year?
That remains to be seen. I don't expect anything super unusual, but I can't say for certain that there won't be, because there is a definite buildup of energies now, and it's continuing on and will peak out on the 12th of August. And also a little bit either side of that, from about the 8th of August until perhaps the 20th or 21st of August, and then it'll be further taper off into September.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Becky, for your call.
Much. Thank you.
Let's move on to our wild card line. You're on Coast to Coast with Al Bielek. Hi there.
Yes, how you doing tonight, guys?
Great, thanks.
I have a question for Al that might put a few things together. Al, are you ever going to reveal who these aliens were, actually, and their relation to us as humans that you were working with?
I'm sorry, who the aliens were that what?
And their relationship to us, if any?
Yes. Yes, that's my question, the relationship that they had with us as humans, as living beings themselves.
Okay.
There is a connection.
All right, and we'll let you listen on the radio. Can you answer that one, Al?
In part. The alien connection has been ongoing for a long period of time, but in terms of current society and civilization, probably from the beginning of the 20th century, became quite heavy in the period around World War II and afterwards, and it's still ongoing. They have, let us put it this way, they've infiltrated our government and most world governments. You have an organization called the Illuminati, which, in my view, reports to the alien groups. There are aliens that walk the streets of our cities. You couldn't tell the difference. All you have to do in some cases is put dark glasses on them, a hat on them, and a face cover, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference, particularly in a city like New York. They're all over the place. They're working for our government. We have ongoing relationships with alien groups outside. One of the things which has turned up is the fact that elements of, for example, I have a chart which goes from element 1 to 140. That has never been released outside of the government in certain quarters. The fact that there are elements beyond the 109, 110.
Mm-hmm.
122 and 123 is used in the building of our stealth bombers and stealth fighters. They couldn't be built without it, and they do not exist on the Earth normally, those elements. As many beyond 115 don't exist. They're all brought in on some kind of a trade deal. I do not know who they're trading with. I do not know who's made the agreements, except as with our government.
Or what they're getting, right?
And you can go up to element 140. Phil Schneider, when he was alive, showed samples of these materials because he had a very high-level connection with the government until he broke with the government and then went public. Element 140 looks like black carbon, except it's twice as dense as gold. If given amount, it weighs twice as much. It has a specific gravity twice that of gold, and is very, very stable. All of these elements have been brought in, and for what purpose? Who knows? It says there is trade with the outside. There's contractual agreements. Who makes them? I don't know. How they are handled, I can't really answer, but they are used. They get here.
Did you ever see a craft, Al?
A craft?
Yeah,
Yes,
a saucer
I worked
craft.
on one. It was the first job I had at Montauk in 1976, is to work on a UFO which was trapped in the underground.
What did it look like? Big? Small? What was it?
It was about 60 feet in diameter, had the sort of a golden cast to the surface of the metal, and they couldn't get out. They got trapped in there because of the Philadelphia experiment. It was connected with that in a certain sense as an observer that went awry. And there was a crew of 7. We interrogated them eventually, and eventually dismantled the craft as much as we could. We didn't know enough about them in order to fully dismantle them, and certain elements we didn't want to touch. Their power system, power supply, we wouldn't go near. Was
it eerie inside?
I'm sorry?
Was it eerie inside the craft?
No, it wasn't eerie. Actually, the occupants were in it were normal size like us. They were about 6 foot. Therefore, it was designed for people of about a 6 foot height. So it looked fairly normal in the sense that the accommodations were for people of a normal human size. But eventually, that thing was lost, the project was lost, and other things came to pass, which I became involved in. But that was the first thing I worked on.
I'm sure we still have it somewhere, Al. First time
still
caller.
Buried somewheres in the underground out there.
You're on Coast to Coast with us. Hi there.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hey, this is Ted from Lincoln, Nebraska. I just had a question for Al. I was wondering why the military would gone to so much trouble to age regress Al there, and instead of just killing maybe him and Duncan.
Good question. Why did they just do you both in, Al?
It's a very good question, and there's a very simple answer to that. We were considered as part of the stabilization effect up to the year 2003, plus the fact that both Duncan and I had traveled extensively in time, and other people have also. We were considered not only part of the problem, but part of the solution, namely to try and keep things stable until they could find some other way to do it. They never found another way to stabilize this whole time field. It has to stabilize naturally. And, of course, I've opined in the past that after 12 August 2003, maybe I'm expendable. But I have other reasons to believe I'm not. And that was basically the reason. They could not take the risk of doing the simple thing of killing us, because they didn't know what effect it would have on the time loops.
I don't want to let this night go without asking you about Mars. How did you get there, first of all, Al, and what did you see?
Got there through the Montauk project, through the Montauk wormhole. We were sent there because of the colonies on Mars finding sealed entrances to underground areas which obviously were sealed off artificially.
Now, were you there physically, or were you there in some kind of mental capacity?
No, we were there physically. The Montauk project would send us there physically. We went there with a crew more than once, and then Duncan and I decided to go on our own because I knew the time engineer and we could set things up.
What would you do about air environment? I mean, were you in a spacesuit or what?
No, because there is enough air on Mars today to breathe, though it's thin.
Really?
And in the underground, there was a lot of air. There was quite, the environment in the underground was quite hospitable.
Did you see any evidence of past civilizations on that planet?
Oh, yes. There was ample evidence of past civilizations. No evidence of anything surviving into the present era, possibly prior to about 10,000 BC, but that is strictly an educated guess.
You didn't see running water or anything like that?
No, I didn't see any evidence of running water, but there is other evidence elsewhere that there might have been, and maybe still was, because the colonies had to have water from someplace. The colonies have been on Mars since sometime after 63.
They're there now?
Yes, they're there now. Mars is inhabited by us, humans, since about approximately 1969.
Al, what an incredible journey. We've run out of time. I've got to get you back again, all right?
That's fine.
You do that? Thanks you. Al Bielek.
Well, thank you very much for getting me back on the show.
Part of history. Philadelphia experiment back in 1943. And you see what happens when you go into time. You begin to find out that there's only going to be 500 million of us in the next several hundred years.